I still remember the sound of the door slamming. It wasn't just a noise. It was a shift, a breaking point, a moment so defining that it carved itself into my memory like a scar. Lorraine had left before, but never like this. Never with the kind of finality that made my stomach churn. She didn't even hesitate. No last glance, no second thoughts. Just a flick of her hair, the clatter of her heels on the floor, and then silence. "I'm going to Caleb's party," she had said, adjusting her dress in the hallway mirror. "Since you clearly don't care about having fun, I'll go enjoy myself without you." It was like she wanted me to react, to fight her on it. But I didn't. I just stood there, staring at the spot where she had been seconds ago, my pulse drumming in my ears. Caleb. Of all people, it had to be him. The ex-boyfriend who had hovered like a shadow in the background of our marriage. The one she swore meant nothing, but whose name always felt heavier in conversation. The one who made her laugh just a little too much when we ran into him at social events. And now, she was going to his house. To a party full of people who had never thought I was good enough for her. Maybe I should have yelled. Maybe I should have begged her to stay. But what would be the point? This wasn't about me. It never had been. The moment she left, I sat down on the couch, staring at the blank television screen. My mind raced through every conversation we had ever had about Caleb, every reassurance, every eye roll when I brought up my concerns. "You're being insecure," she had said once, laughing at me like I was a jealous fool. Maybe I was, but maybe I wasn't. I ran my hands over my face and exhaled sharply. I needed to clear my head. I needed to think. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through my messages out of habit. My friends had sent a few texts earlier, but I hadn't answered. One in particular caught my eye. "Elliot, hey man, if you're free tonight, let's grab a drink." "You good?" I stared at the screen. Was I good? Not even close. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. But before I could respond, another message popped up. "Elliot, actually never mind. I just heard where Lorraine went. If you need anything, call me." I clenched my jaw. So, word was already spreading. People knew. They knew my wife was at her ex's house. And here I was, sitting alone, looking like a fool. Hours passed. I tried distracting myself, flipping through channels, pacing the living room, checking my phone like a man waiting for news he didn't want to hear. Midnight came and went. 1 a.m. No call. No text. I finally stood up, walking to our bedroom, expecting to find some sign that she had at least thought about me before leaving. But the room was untouched. The bed was still made. And on her dresser, next to her jewelry box, was her wedding ring. She had taken it off. The sight of it sent a wave of nausea through me. She had made a choice tonight. But so had I. By the time she walked through that door, she wouldn't be coming home to the same husband she left behind. The wedding ring sat there, small but suffocating, like a tiny piece of metal crushing my chest. I stared at it for what felt like hours, trying to convince myself it didn't mean anything. Maybe she just forgot. Maybe she took it off while getting ready. But the truth was staring me in the face. She hadn't wanted it on her finger tonight. I sank onto the edge of the bed, gripping my temples. A storm of emotions raged inside me. Anger, pain, betrayal, and worst of all, humiliation. I could already hear the whispers. The people at that party smirking behind their drinks, exchanging glances as they realized Lorraine's husband wasn't there. And Caleb? He'd be the life of the party, his hand on my wife's back, his voice in her ear. He was always good at making her laugh, at making her feel young and reckless. I had no doubt he'd try something tonight. And Lorraine? She had already made it clear she didn't care. The clock read 2:17 a.m. She still wasn't home. I had paced every inch of the house by now, my mind running circles around itself. I wanted to call her, demand an answer, ask her if she had any idea what this felt like. But what would that accomplish? Nothing. If she cared, she wouldn't have gone. If she respected me, she wouldn't have left her ring behind like it was nothing. I had to accept the truth. I was alone in this marriage. And maybe I had been for a long time. By 3 a.m., something inside me snapped. I couldn't sit in this house another second. I needed air. I needed to move. I grabbed my jacket and keys and walked out without looking back. The cold night hit me like a slap, but it was better than the suffocating stillness inside. My car rumbled to life, and before I could think too much about it, I started driving. Not toward the bar, not toward a friend's house, but toward Caleb's. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe I wanted to prove myself wrong. Maybe I wanted to see Lorraine stepping outside, realizing how late it was, calling a cab to come home. Maybe I wanted her to look guilty, to show even an ounce of remorse. But when I pulled up near his house, my stomach clenched. Cars lined the street, the bass from inside still thumping. The party was still going strong. And then I saw her, Lorraine, standing in the doorway, her arms draped around Caleb's neck. I couldn't move. I could only sit there, frozen, as I watched her laugh at something he said, her body leaning into his like it belonged there, like she had never belonged to me at all. Something inside me shattered. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sadness. I felt nothing. Because at that moment, I realized the woman I married didn't exist anymore. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe minutes, maybe an hour. But at some point, I put my car in drive and pulled away. I had been waiting all night for Lorraine to come home, but she already had. She just wasn't coming home to me. And that's when I made my decision. When she walked through that door, expecting everything to be the same, she would find out exactly how wrong she was. I don't remember much of the drive home. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, but I barely noticed. My mind was locked on the image of Lorraine in Caleb's arms. The way she laughed, the way she tilted her head just enough to let him whisper into her ear, the way her body molded into his without hesitation. She was comfortable there, like it was natural, like it had been happening long before tonight. I should have felt anger, fury, a need to confront her, to scream, to make her feel an ounce of what I was feeling. But I didn't, because as I drove through the empty streets, something else took its place, a clarity so sharp it almost hurt. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was a choice. She had made her decision, and now I was making mine. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was just as I left it, dark, quiet, lifeless. A reflection of what my marriage had become. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me with the same finality that Lorraine had slammed it hours ago. The wedding ring still sat on the dresser, mocking me, a reminder that she had walked out of this house as someone else, someone I didn't recognize anymore. I picked it up, rolling the small band between my fingers. How many times had she sworn she loved me while wearing this? How many times had she looked me in the eyes and told me I was the only man she wanted? Lies. All of it. The weight of it settled on my chest, pressing the air from my lungs. But then, as I stared down at the ring, a thought cut through the noise. If she could so easily discard this marriage, then why was I holding on to it? For the next few hours, I didn't sleep. I didn't sit still. I moved through the house with one goal in mind, making sure Lorraine knew exactly what she had lost. I pulled out my suitcase, the one tucked away in the back of the closet from our last vacation. I started throwing things into it, clothes, toiletries, essentials. But I wasn't packing for me. I was packing for her. I went through her drawers, her side of the closet, pulling out the things she wore most often, the things she loved. The expensive dresses, the jewelry, the shoes she always swore she couldn't live without. I packed them all. Then I grabbed a trash bag. The framed wedding photos came down first. Our smiling faces, our hands intertwined, the happiest day of our lives. Gone. Every picture, every reminder of the life we had built together. I ripped them from the walls, from the shelves, from the frames on the nightstand. By the time I was done, the house felt emptier than ever, like she had already left. And maybe, in a way, she had. The clock read 5:42 a.m. when I finally sat down. I stared at the packed suitcase by the door, the trash bag filled with memories I didn't want anymore, and the hollow space where our wedding pictures once hung. It was done. The house wasn't ours anymore. It was mine. And when Lorraine walked through that door, expecting things to be the same, she would find out just how wrong she was. The sky outside had started to lighten by the time I heard the familiar sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I sat motionless in the living room, staring at the wall where our wedding photos used to hang. The emptiness of it felt fitting. The silence of the house pressed down on me, thick and suffocating. A few seconds later, I heard the soft click of the front door unlocking. She was home. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just listened. At first, there was nothing. Just the quiet rustling of fabric, the sound of her keys hitting the counter, the faint exhale of someone relieved to be back in their own space. Then, footsteps. Slow, cautious, and then a pause. She had seen it. The suitcase, the trash bags, the sudden, glaring absence of everything that had once made this house feel like ours. I waited for the realization to sink in. And then, what the hell is this? Her voice cracked slightly, just enough to betray the confidence she always tried so hard to maintain. Still, I didn't look at her. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly before speaking the words I had been holding in all night. I packed your things. Silence. Not the kind that comes with understanding, but the kind that comes with shock. And then, just as quickly, you're joking, right? She let out a nervous, breathy laugh, stepping forward like she thought she could wave all of this away. Come on, this is ridiculous. I just went out for a few hours. A few hours. That's what she was going with? I finally turned to face her. Lorraine was standing there in the same dress she had left in. Only now, it was wrinkled. Her makeup was slightly smudged, her hair a little messier than when she had stormed out. But the worst part? She still had his scent on her. Perfume mixed with cologne. I didn't even need to ask. I already knew. You're serious, she said, eyes darting to the suitcase like it might disappear if she stared hard enough. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. So, what, you're just gonna throw me out? Like some stranger? After 8 years? You threw us out. My voice was calm. Too calm. The second you walked out that door last night, she scoffed, shaking her head like I was being ridiculous. You're overreacting. I went to a party. That's all. I needed space, and you? Don't lie to me, Lorraine. She froze. The air between us went still. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. I saw you. Her eyes widened slightly, the barest flicker of panic crossing her face. Saw what? I tilted my head, studying her. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even trying to deny it. She just didn't know how much I knew. I saw you with him, I said, voice steady. Saw you laughing. Saw you putting your hands on him. Saw you looking at him like I wasn't even in the picture. Another pause. And then, that's ridiculous, she snapped, her face twisting in frustration. You're acting like a jealous psycho. I was just... You took your ring off. The words hit her like a slap. For the first time, her expression cracked. And that's when I saw it, fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing control. Because in her mind, she was supposed to win. She was supposed to come home, maybe apologize half-heartedly, maybe make up some excuse, and I was supposed to take it. That's how it had always been. But not this time. This time, I was the one making the choices. Her eyes flicked to the suitcase again, and for the first time, her confidence wavered. Where am I supposed to go? A cold, bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Oh, I don't know. Maybe Caleb's place? Since you seemed pretty comfortable there. Her mouth opened, then closed. She had nothing to say, because she knew I was right. And for the first time in our entire marriage, she was the one being left behind. The silence between us stretched like a canyon, wide, bottomless, impossible to cross. Lorraine stood frozen in place, her hands gripping the hem of her dress like she was trying to anchor herself. But there was nothing left for her to hold on to. This was it. She knew it, and I knew it. Her eyes flicked to the suitcase again, then back to me. You're really doing this? It wasn't a question. I exhaled slowly, my patience thinning. I already did. Her nostrils flared, the panic in her expression shifting into something sharper. Anger. This is insane, Zachary, she hissed, her voice trembling just enough to betray how desperate she was. You're acting like some dramatic teenager. I went to a party. That's all. You're making this into something it's not. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because of course she was doing this. Of course she was twisting it. Do you think I'm stupid? I asked, leaning forward, my elbows resting on my knees. Do you think I don't know what I saw? That I didn't sit in my car and watch my wife, wrap herself around another man like I didn't exist? She flinched. It was subtle, but I caught it. I could see the gears turning in her head, scrambling for a way out of this. But there wasn't one. Not anymore. She let out a short breath, shaking her head like she was trying to clear it. Zach, please, don't do this. You're upset, I get it, but we can talk about this. You don't just throw away a marriage over one mistake. My jaw tightened. One mistake. Like this was some minor lapse in judgment. Like she had tripped and landed in another man's arms. I stood up, my movements slow, deliberate. Lorraine took half a step back, like she wasn't sure what I was going to do. I didn't yell. I didn't slam my fists on the table or throw anything. I just looked her in the eye and asked, was this the first time? Her breath hitched. That was all I needed. She could have denied it. She could have sworn up and down that last night was a one-time thing, that she had never so much as thought about Caleb in that way before. But she hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. My chest felt hollow, numb, like the final thread that had been holding me together had finally snapped. I ran a hand over my face, exhaling slowly. You've been lying to me for a long time, haven't you? She opened her mouth, then shut it. I nodded. That's what I thought. For a few long seconds, neither of us spoke. Then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it, Lorraine whispered, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I let out a bitter chuckle. And yet, here we are. She swallowed hard, eyes darting to the suitcase again. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged, feeling nothing but exhaustion at this point. That's not my problem, Lorraine. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. Her hands clenched into fists. You're seriously kicking me out? I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because the packed suitcase by the door said everything for me. Her expression twisted, something breaking inside her. You can't do this. We're married. You walked away from this marriage long before I did. I cut her off, my voice steady. The difference is, I'm just finishing what you started. Tears welled up in her eyes. For the first time, I saw real fear in them. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing the security that came with me. The house. The stability. The man who had always been there, waiting, no matter how many times she pushed me away. But not this time. This time, I wasn't waiting. This time, I was done. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. Lorraine looked at me like she was searching for something. An opening, a crack, any sign that I might change my mind. But there was nothing left to say. Nothing left to save. I stepped past her, grabbed the suitcase, and set it outside on the porch. Then, I turned back to her. Goodbye, Lorraine. And with that, I closed the door. The click of the door shutting behind her was louder than any argument we had ever had. I stood there, my hand still on the handle, feeling the weight of that single moment settle into my bones. It was over. Really, truly over. I exhaled, pressing my forehead against the door for just a second. My chest felt tight, my mind racing with everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. It didn't feel real, none of it did. But when I turned around and looked at the house, the empty walls, the missing wedding pictures, the space where her shoes used to sit by the door, I knew it was. She was gone, and I wasn't going to chase after her. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at nothing. Minutes, maybe hours. Eventually, I walked back into the kitchen, grabbed a glass from the cupboard, and poured myself a drink. I didn't even like whiskey, but at that moment, it felt right. I took a sip, feeling the slow burn down my throat, and let my eyes wander over the room. It looked the same. The same table, the same chairs, the same counter where Lorraine used to sit every morning, scrolling through her phone while I made coffee. But it felt different, like something had been sucked out of the air, like the house was holding its breath. I took another sip and ran a hand through my hair. Was this how it was supposed to feel? Was I supposed to feel free? Or just empty? The silence didn't last long. A sharp knock at the door made me flinch, breaking me out of my thoughts. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. I didn't need to check. I already knew. It was her. I ignored it. Then came another knock. Louder. Then another. Then her voice. Zach, open the door. I stayed where I was. Another knock. Then another. Then bam. A full-on pound, her fist slamming against the wood. Zachary, open the damn door. I turned, staring at the entrance like I could see through it. My fingers tightened around my glass. She had only been gone 10 minutes. 10. And already, she was back. But why? Had she changed her mind? Or had he kicked her out first? Another slam. I sighed, setting down my drink and walking toward the door. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I just stood there, my hand hovering over the handle. And then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I asked, "What do you want, Lorraine?" A pause. Then, "Open the door." No. I could almost hear her grinding her teeth. "You're being ridiculous." I laughed under my breath. "You think I'm the one being ridiculous? You're really throwing me out over one mistake?" There it was again. That same, tired excuse. One mistake. As if last night had been an accident. As if she had tripped and landed in Caleb's arms. I shook my head, pressing my palm against the door. "You're not coming back in here, Lorraine." Silence. Then, "Zach, please," she said, her voice suddenly softer. I wasn't thinking. I had too much to drink. Stop. I leaned my head against the door. "I saw you," I murmured. Her breath caught. "I saw you laughing with him. I saw the way you looked at him. The way you touched him." I swallowed the lump in my throat. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. Another pause. Then, barely above a whisper, "I didn't sleep with him." I squeezed my eyes shut. Did she think that would fix this? That just because she hadn't gone all the way, it meant she hadn't betrayed me in every other way possible? I let out a shaky breath. "You still took off your ring." She didn't answer. Because she knew what that meant. Another long stretch of silence passed. I waited for her to yell, to scream, to pound on the door again. But she didn't. Instead, I heard the faintest, shakiest breath. Then a single word. "Please." Not demanding. Not angry. Just broken. I don't know why, but that almost hurt more than the betrayal itself. But I couldn't let it get to me. Because this wasn't about one night. This was about all the nights before it. Every doubt. Every reassurance. Every time she told me I was being paranoid. Every lie. So, with my hands still on the door, I took the deepest breath of my life and said the only thing that mattered. "Goodbye, Lorraine." And then, I walked away. I walked away from the door, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Lorraine was still on the other side, probably standing there in disbelief, waiting for me to crack. She always thought she could wear me down, get me to change my mind. But not this time. This time, there was nothing left to say. I grabbed my drink and sank into the couch, my body heavy with exhaustion. I hadn't slept all night. The house still smelled like her perfume, but it felt emptier than ever. I stared at the ceiling, trying to process the weight of everything that had happened. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. I didn't know if she was still out there. I didn't check. I just let go. And then, the quiet was broken by my phone buzzing on the coffee table. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was Lorraine. But then another message came in. And another. I sighed and grabbed the phone, unlocking the screen. "Elliot. Man, I just heard. You okay?" "Nathan. Lorraine was at Caleb's last night? Are you serious?" "Unknown number. Zach, I'm so sorry. I thought you knew. Please call me." My stomach twisted. The last message sent a cold chill through me. I frowned, staring at the number. I didn't recognize it, but something about it made my hands shake. I hesitated for a second before replying. "Who is this?" The response came almost instantly. "Unknown number. It's Maya. We need to talk." Maya. I blinked at the screen. Maya was Caleb's girlfriend. Or at least, she had been. I sat up straighter, my pulse quickening. Maya and I had never been close, but she had always been polite whenever we ran into each other. She was the quiet type, always standing slightly behind Caleb at social events, never drawing much attention to herself. So why was she messaging me now? Something wasn't right. My fingers hovered over the screen. Then, before I could think too much about it, I called her. She answered on the second ring. "Zach," she breathed, her voice shaking. I don't even know where to start." I swallowed. "What's going on?" A pause. Then, "I have something you need to see." Her voice was strained, like she was on the verge of tears. My grip on the phone tightened. "Maya, just tell me." She inhaled sharply. "It's about Lorraine and Caleb. It's not just last night. It's been going on for months." My stomach dropped. Months. My mind reeled. I had expected something like this, but hearing it out loud, it felt like being punched in the gut. "Maya," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice steady, "how do you know?" Silence. Then she exhaled, shakily. "Because I have proof." The room spun for a second. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the couch. "What kind of proof?" I finally forced out. Another pause. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, she whispered. "Videos. Texts. Everything." I couldn't breathe. Everything. All the times Lorraine had reassured me, all the nights I had questioned my own sanity, all the moments she had looked me in the eyes and lied. And now, the truth was sitting in Maya's hands. "Where are you?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. She sniffled. "At my place. I don't want to send this over text. You need to see it for yourself." I stood up, grabbing my keys before I could second-guess myself. "I'm on my way." And with that, I walked out the door, leaving behind the last pieces of my broken marriage. The drive to Maya's apartment was a blur. My mind raced, replaying every moment of my marriage through a new, painful lens. The doubts, the gut feelings I had ignored, the nights Lorraine had come home late with flimsy excuses. All of it was coming together like a puzzle I never wanted to solve. When I pulled up outside her building, I hesitated. Did I really want to see this? Did I need to? Yes. I took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, and knocked on her door. Maya answered almost immediately. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale. She didn't say a word, just stepped aside and motioned for me to come in. We sat in her small living room, the tension between us thick and heavy. She reached for her phone, hesitated for a second, then handed it to me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't respond. I just pressed play. The video started grainy, shaky. Someone had been recording secretly. Then, the image sharpened, and there they were. Lorraine and Caleb, sitting close, laughing, whispering, touching, and then kissing. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to watch. The text came next. Messages between them stretching back months. Flirty, intimate, detailed. Plans made behind my back. Excuses crafted to keep me in the dark. I felt sick. Maya was watching me carefully, probably expecting me to explode. But I didn't. Because, for the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't confused. I was free. I set the phone down and exhaled, long and slow. She swallowed. "Are you okay?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she wasn't just some messenger of bad news. She was hurting too. "No," I admitted. "But I will be." The next few days were a whirlwind. I met with my lawyer, filed for divorce, had the locks changed, cut off every possible way for Lorraine to manipulate her way back into my life. She tried, of course. She called. She texted. She even showed up at my doorstep, but I never answered. She didn't get to lie her way out of this one. The truth was out, and I was done. I had wasted enough time on someone who never valued me. It was time to start over. Months passed. The divorce was finalized, and with every signed paper, I felt lighter. I started going out more, reconnecting with old friends, finding pieces of myself that had been buried under years of trying to make a broken marriage work. And Maya? We kept talking. At first, it was just about them. The betrayal, the hurt, the mess we had to clean up. But then, something shifted. We started talking about us, about our lives, our goals, our dreams, about things that had nothing to do with the people who had betrayed us. And one evening, as we sat at a quiet cafe, laughing over something completely stupid, I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. The night Lorraine walked out of our house, I thought it was the worst moment of my life. But now, I see it for what it really was. The beginning of something better. Because sometimes, the best thing that can ever happen to you is losing the wrong person.